Hi, this is Daphne Reynolds. This is my Gearhead manufacturing scenario. I am the human resources consultant in for this case. So, Gearhead Manufacturing is a family owned company that has been in existence for about 10 years. They produce gears and shafts for companies that produce armored military vehicles. And they have been awarded a $50 million contract to manufacture a new gear that is blast resistant. On top of this new contract that they have received, they've also had their fair share of personnel problems. And it is my job and duty to break those down and to give some alternative suggestions on how to fix those. So the first is just the issues in general. The first issue and the biggest issue that we have is the Director of Quality Control. There are two complaints currently lodged against her, one about sexual harassment and the other one about a hostile work environment. The second is because of her, we have lost a critical amount of employees pertinent to the organization. The third is that our machine operators are uneducated in computer literacy and are unable to fulfill their job because of that uneducated component. And the last but not least is going to be the reduction in employee benefits that they are going to be facing. So let's break down each of these crises. So the first one is the Director of Quality Control. Like I said, she has two complaints lodged against her right now, very serious, one about sexual harassment, the other one about a hostile work environment. These need to be handled as soon as possible. This is the first and foremost problem that needs to be faced. What needs to happen is that both individuals who have lodged these complaints need to be spoken to separately and confidentially, figure out their side of the story, get all the details that they can, then need to speak with the Director of Quality Control, get her side of the story, see if maybe there's just some miscommunication between the two parties. But either way, get both sides of the story. Try to come to a resolution if there is one. If not, the Director of Quality Control should be put on administrative leave immediately while they investigate the two instances. During that time, if she is put on administrative leave, find a qualified interim Director of Quality Control. Per this contract, we cannot not have somebody in that quality control department. They need that so that they can maintain that contract. And if all goes well, it should take about 1 month. Unless administrative leave is implemented, then it would probably take 3 to 6 months, depending on the investigation. The second issue to tie into the first is just the loss of employees that we have had because of this Director of Quality Control. What we would want to do is we would want to speak to those individuals, try to get their side as to why they left. Was it something about having maybe the wrong person in the wrong seat? Were they not feeling challenged enough? Just try to get down to really the bottom of why they wanted to leave, to see if there's anything that we can do to bring them back on. Depending on how many people are willing to speak to us, it should take about 2 weeks to kind of gather all that information. And if there is any lingering information that be pertinent to the investigation of the prior issue, that would be something that we would also want to look at as well. The third issue is that our machine operators are uneducated when it comes to computers. And for their job, we desperately need people in that field who know how to work computers, who can work the machines, and who are good at it. So I would require mandatory training for all machine operators. The tuition reimbursement program that we currently offer is pretty substantial. I would recommend and encourage and enforce that all employees utilize that program so that they can become more knowledgeable about the machines that they are working on. I would give all employees about a 6-month time window to get enrolled and start courses. Otherwise, we cannot guarantee that their job will be there. There are people out there who are probably just as educated and willing to work than those who have been here for 5 to 7 years, who are unwilling to change and unwilling to get educated to further the company in their job. The fourth issue is going to be the reduction in employee benefits. Going from a 38% total compensation to a 30% compensation is going to definitely leave some employees very unhappy. So we're going to run the risk of having some disgruntled employees, and some employees may leave because of the benefit program reduction. However, I think if we can kind of cushion the bad benefits with the good benefits and maybe explain to the employees so that they know that it's not personal, it's business, we're trying to save money here. If we can do that, then maybe they'd be more willing to stick around, and that the reduction in benefits does not have them fleeing for the hills. So in trying to get more employees to work for us, we need to recruit about 20 more employees. And we understand that, where we are is the pickings are tough. It's a non-union job. We understand that. So cast a wide net is kind of our main goal. So if we can get about a 60-mile radius to try to recruit more people to work for us, that would be fantastic. We can post in newspapers, online forums, search engines, signs around town, wherever we can get our name out there. I think the bigger net that we cast, the more qualified candidates we're going to get. And then from that, we can interview them, bring them in, have them meet with us in human resources, have them meet with some of the managers depending on what department they're going to work in, and then also have them meet some of the other employees to see if they're going to be a good fit. People may look great on paper, but this could be another instance of our director of quality control that they might look good on paper, but maybe they're not necessarily the best person for the job. The other program that I would consider looking into is partnering with a high school. I'm trying to find a high school technical program where we can train and kind of groom individuals when they're young, that maybe when they graduate from high school, they'd be more willing to stick around and come work for us versus directly going into school. This way, you know that we have a pool of candidates that we can always rely on. And if we do have a substantial loss in employees, we definitely know where we can go and try to find those individuals. So on top of this program, we also need to look into our affirmative action. So our affirmative action program needs to include our company's policy on equal opportunity and affirmative action in regards to our recruiting, our hiring, training, promotions, compensations, layoffs, and other personnel transactions. Definitely needs to include our organizational profile. It needs to show how the organization is structured, who reports to who, basically how the hierarchy works here, job title, all of that, male, female, just really break it down for people so they can really see and be as transparent as possible who works in what department and how it works. And then it also needs to include other jobs that we have in our company that might be similar to other job groups, so that they can see, similar job duties, compensations, and opportunities for advancement. It would also want to include an availability analysis. Two factors that kind of need to be considered when determining availability is a percentage of minorities or women with requisite skills and reasonable recruitment areas, and the percentage of women or minorities among those promotable, transferable, trainable within our organization as well. It should include an availability of women and minorities compared with their current representation in each job group. For each of those job groups in which women or minorities are available is definitely greater than the representation of the company. Definitely should include placement goals. Placement goals equals availability, which is determined obviously by our goal setting. Individuals who are responsible for equal opportunity and affirmative action programs, specifically, like our equal opportunity administrator or human resources and managers, definitely have people who are designated and assigned to those responsibilities and held accountable with our affirmative action plan. Definitely needs to include any of our affirmative action programs designated to eliminate any of those problem areas like we're currently facing right now. Should describe how affirmative action programs is measured and monitored. The most important thing is when you're talking about programming is that make sure it's measurable. Basically, you want to have a SMART goal. Definitely needs to demonstrate the affirmative action program is being monitored, problems are being identified, and actions are being taken place. We definitely don't want any issues to linger. We want to be able, if there is an issue, we want to be able to stomp it right there and then and not have it linger. And that's how you kind of get that bad blood. You can also have issues with gossip and rumors. And then reinforce the company's policy against discrimination as well. So in looking at the issue that we currently are facing with the harassment complaints against the Director of Quality Control, the instances definitely need to be handled separately. In terms of investigating them, sexual harassment versus the hostile work environment, unless we come to find that during that investigation that the hostile work environment stems from sexual harassment or is a residual effect of sexual harassment, then we would be able to bring both investigations together. We want to make sure that we're ensuring confidentiality between the victims and the Director of Quality Control, provide some sort of protection so that, like I said, we have an interim Director of Quality Control during this time. Find an investigator, preferably someone in the Human Resources Department. We want to create a plan for the investigation, develop interview questions so that we stay on target, stay on key. Conduct the interviews with all the parties at hand, not necessarily those two individuals and the director, but any